All right, let's dive into Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Sounds good. Yeah.
This book is like a self-help classic, right?
Oh, for sure.
I'm really excited to kind of dig into Carnegie's principles and see how they hold up in today's world?
Yeah, it's amazing how relevant his ideas still are. He really understood human nature,
Yeah, he did.
and that hasn't really changed that much over time.
Yeah,
So this deep dive should help give you a grasp of those principles and see how you can use them today.
yeah, for sure. One thing that really struck me was how much Carnegie stresses appreciating others.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't mean like just surface level politeness. He's talking about like real genuine admiration.
Right.
What's the psychology behind why that's so impactful?
Well, appreciation kind of hits a deep need we all have to feel valued and recognized.
Mhm.
When someone sincerely appreciates us, it says, you matter.
Yeah,
It's a powerful validation that goes way beyond just saying thank you.
totally. There's actually a story that Carnegie tells about a Connecticut attorney. He's visiting this elderly relative, and he's actually about to give a speech on appreciation.
Oh, wow.
So he's looking for opportunities to practice, right?
Makes sense.
And so the house is full of these incredible antiques, and he's genuinely admiring them.
Mm-hmm.
He's chatting with this woman about her travels and the stories behind each piece.
Yeah.
And then they go out to the garage, and there's this vintage Packard just sitting there.
Oh, wow.
And she explains that her husband bought it for her, but she hasn't driven it since he passed away.
Wow.
And then, out of nowhere, she offers to give the car to the attorney.
Whoa, seriously.
I know, right? It seems crazy.
That's wild. Why would she give away something so valuable to someone she barely knows?
Yeah, that's the point, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't about the car's like material worth.
Yeah.
The sincere appreciation created this connection, like a bond of trust,
Yeah.
that went beyond logic. That's how powerful just genuine appreciation can be.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's a great example of how these principles aren't about manipulation.
Yeah.
It's about like a real shift in how we interact with people.
Right.
Another thing Carnegie talks about is remembering and using people's names.
Mm-hmm.
He says it can have a surprisingly big impact.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you think about that?
Well, think about it. Your name is tied to your identity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When someone remembers it, especially in our busy world, it shows that they're paying attention.
Right.
You're not just another face in the crowd to them.
It makes you feel seen.
Exactly.
Yeah. He even brings up Napoleon.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, he had this whole system for remembering names.
Right.
He would, repeat the name during the conversation, link it to their features, even write it down and focus on it.
Wow. Even emperors saw the value in making people feel seen and recognized, huh?
Yeah, it really highlights how remembering names isn't just good manners. It's a strategic way to make someone feel important.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of making a good impression, Carnegie has this counterintuitive idea about conversation.
Oh,
He says being a good listener is more important than being a good talker.
interesting.
Yeah, he's not talking about just sitting there quietly, though.
Right.
It's about active listening,
Mhm.
asking engaging questions, drawing people out, making them feel like they're the most interesting person in the room.
I like that.
Yeah, he tells this story about being at a dinner party, seated next to a famous botanist.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how exciting plant talk can be,
Right.
but Carnegie was totally engrossed.
Wow, really?
He listened intently, asked questions, showed genuine interest in everything the botanist said.
Yeah.
And guess what? At the end of the night, the botanist was raving about Carnegie being this brilliant conversationalist.
No way. Even though he barely said a word.
Yeah. What's the takeaway there?
Well, it shows that focusing on the other person, making them the star, makes you seem interesting and engaging, even if you're doing most of the listening.
Yeah, so it's not about being like the most charming or witty person in the room.
Right.
It's about making the other person feel that way.
Exactly.
That's a really interesting perspective shift.
Yeah.
It ties into another one of his key principles, which is avoiding arguments.
Oh, interesting.
Our instinct is often to argue our point, especially when we feel strongly about something.
Yeah, for sure.
But Carnegie says that's almost always counterproductive.
Why is that? It seems like standing up for what you believe in is important.
Yeah, it is, but arguments often become about ego, proving you're right and the other person's wrong.
Yeah.
But when you challenge someone's ego, they get defensive. They're
Right.
less likely to listen to you, even if you have, the best logic in the world.
That is true.
Carnegie actually tells a story about a dinner party where he got into this debate about a Shakespeare quote. They even got another guest who had, like, studied Shakespeare to settle it.
Oh, wow.
And even though Carnegie was right, he realized later that he'd been foolish.
Oh, how so?
He'd won the argument but damaged the connection.
Yeah,
So sometimes being right isn't as important as preserving the relationship.
that's a really good point. It's easy to get caught up in the moment and forget that.
Yeah, for sure.
This kind of leads to an interesting question then. If arguing is off the table, how do you influence people who disagree with you?
Right.
Well, Carnegie suggests a different approach. Motivating through challenge.
Interesting.
Yeah, he has this great example about warden Laws at Sing Sing prison in the 1920s.
Oh, okay.
Laws was known for getting even the toughest criminals to cooperate.
Wow.
One of his techniques was appealing to their pride,
Mm-hmm.
their desire to rise to a challenge.
Oh, okay.
He once needed prisoners to move this huge load of rocks, right?
Yeah.
Instead of ordering them to do it, he made it a competition, like a test of their strength and endurance.
Okay. How did that work out?
Well, the prisoners went all out.
Yeah.
They worked harder and faster than if they had been, threatened.
Wow. So they were more motivated by the challenge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It shows that people are often more motivated by those internal drives,
Yeah.
like proving themselves, than by external pressure.
So instead of forcing your viewpoint, you give them a challenge that makes them want to take action.
Exactly. It's about tapping into their inner motivation.
That's fascinating. It makes you wonder if we underestimate the power of a well-framed challenge.
I think Carnegie would say we absolutely do.
Yeah.
A powerful tool for inspiring people to reach their potential.
Well, this has already given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
What other insights does Carnegie have in store for us?
We've covered a lot of ground already,
Yeah.
appreciating others, the power of names, listening skills, and how to avoid arguments in favor of motivating through challenges.
Right.
What are your thoughts so far?
It's amazing how these seemingly simple ideas can be so powerful. It's like Carnegie's given us a roadmap to better relationships and influence without being manipulative,
Exactly. And that brings up another crucial point, sincerity.
Oh, yeah.
All of Carnegie's principles
Yeah.
only work if you're genuine.
So it's not about using these techniques as, like, tricks.
Not at all. In fact, he specifically warns against that faking it will backfire in the long run.
Right.
Because people can sense insincerity, and that erodes trust.
Yeah.
It's got to be about a genuine desire to connect and understand other people's perspectives.
That makes sense. He also talks about starting conversations on a positive note.
Yeah.
Instead of jumping right into disagreements, he says, find some common ground first.
Right. He calls this the yes-yes technique.
Okay.
The idea is to get the other person saying yes early on to build agreement and rapport.
I see.
He had a great example of a salesman who's trying to sell motors to a company that had rejected him for years.
Okay.
And he finally got, a small order, but the engineers said they wouldn't buy more because the motors ran too hot.
Oh, so they had a problem with the product.
Yeah.
Oh.
Most salespeople would probably get defensive in that situation.
Right.
But this guy did something different. He actually agreed with the engineer, saying, you're absolutely right. If they're too hot, you shouldn't buy more.
So he acknowledged the concern.
Exactly. By acknowledging the concern and getting a yes, he created an opening for dialogue. He then explained that the motors were operating within industry standards, and guess what?
What?
The engineer ended up placing a huge order.
Wow. Really?
Yeah,
So just by shifting the tone from confrontation to collaboration.
exactly.
That's amazing. It reminds me of another point, making people feel important.
Yes. Carnegie says that's a fundamental need, and when you meet that need,
Yeah.
you open up huge potential for cooperation.
It's like you're validating them.
Exactly. He tells a story about a building contractor who was furious with a subcontractor who was constantly delivering materials late.
Yeah, I hate when that happens.
Yeah, he was ready to fire him, but then decided to try a different approach.
Okay.
Instead of yelling, he took the time to learn about the subcontractor,
Mm-hmm.
his background, his family, the pride he took in his work.
Okay.
He even toured the factory and complimented the guy's manufacturing process.
Wow, so he went above and beyond to show that he cared.
Right, and without being asked, the subcontractor promised to deliver on time,
Really?
even if it meant delaying other orders.
Wow.
He was so moved by the genuine interest and appreciation that he went above and beyond.
That's incredible how a little kindness and understanding can have such a big impact.
It ties into the principle of letting the other person save face,
Oh, wow.
Even if someone is clearly wrong, Humiliating them will just hurt their ego
Yeah.
and make them less cooperative in the future.
So it's better to appeal to their better nature than to try to force them to admit they're wrong.
Exactly. Carnegie actually has a funny story about this from his own life.
Okay.
He was walking his dog in the park without a leash, which was against the rules, and a mounted policeman saw him
Oh, no.
and started to reprimand him.
Oh, did he get a ticket?
He could have argued, but instead he immediately admitted he was wrong and apologized.
Okay.
He even agreed that people who break the rules should be punished.
Wow. He really took responsibility.
Yeah, and the policeman, surprised by the humility, actually softened his tone and gave him a warning.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, he even suggested a spot where he could let his dog run off leash without being seen.
That's amazing. So sometimes admitting you're wrong can be the best way to win someone over.
It can definitely disarm a tense situation
Yeah.
and turn a potential adversary into an ally.
Wow.
It shows that you respect their authority and understand their perspective.
It's a good reminder that people are often more driven by emotion than logic.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if you have all the facts on your side, if you trigger negative emotions,
Yeah.
you're unlikely to persuade them.
Carnegie suggests focusing on creating a positive emotional connection. Be sympathetic to their ideas and desires and try to appeal to their better nature.
That makes sense. He also talks about making people feel like they came up with the idea themselves.
Yes. It's not about dictating orders or forcing your opinions,
Right.
but planting a seed and letting it grow in their mind.
Okay.
He shares an anecdote about a salesman trying to secure a big order for fabrics from a furniture manufacturer. He'd been working on the deal for months, but the president wouldn't budge.
Okay.
Then, by chance, the salesman lost his voice.
Oh, no. That's every salesman's worst nightmare.
I know, right?
What did he do?
Well, during the final meeting where he was supposed to make his pitch,
Yeah.
he could barely talk.
Oh, wow.
The president, eager to fill the silence,
Uh-huh.
ended up outlining all the reasons he should place the order.
No way.
Basically, he sold himself on the deal.
So the salesman landed the biggest order of his career by saying almost nothing.
Exactly. He'd learned the power of letting the other person take ownership of the idea.
It's like reverse psychology almost.
Kinda, yeah. It's a technique used in leadership, too.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of micromanaging,
Yeah.
effective leaders let their team members come up with solutions,
Okay.
making them feel like they're part of the decision-making process.
That makes so much sense. It leads to more buy-in and better results, right?
Exactly.
What about giving constructive criticism?
Ooh, yeah.
That can be a tricky situation.
Carnegie recommends starting by praising the person's good points before addressing areas for improvement.
Okay.
People are much more receptive to hearing about their flaws if you first acknowledge their strengths.
It's kind of like giving a compliment sandwich.
Yeah, but genuine, of course.
Right, of course.
He tells this funny story about Calvin Coolidge, who is known for being a man of few words.
Oh, yeah, silent Cal.
Exactly.
Okay.
Coolidge once complimented his secretary, saying, "That's a pretty dress you're wearing this morning, and you're a very attractive young woman."
Wow, that's quite a compliment from Coolidge.
I know, right?
What happened?
The secretary was taken aback and thanked him.
Uh-huh.
Then Coolidge, with his dry wit, added,
Okay.
"Now don't get stuck up. I just said that to make you feel good. From now on, I wish you would be a little bit more careful with your punctuation."
That's hilarious. But it makes a good point.
Yeah,
Starting with a positive affirmation creates goodwill and makes people more receptive to feedback.
right. It speaks to a fundamental aspect of human nature.
Mm-hmm.
We respond better to